Today we're going to be taking a look at microphones, specifically 4 popular vlogging microphones to figure out which one is best for you. The first microphone we're going to look at is the Sennheiser MKE 200. Now this little microphone is by far the smallest and lightest of the microphones that we're going to look at today, so let's take a look at some of the features. For starters, it weighs in at just about 46 grams. The mic cable plugs directly into the front port and has a little locking collar to make sure that the cable doesn't come out during production. This is actually really helpful and I'm glad that they included that. The mic itself has a pretty low profile when it sits on your camera. It's not too wide, not too tall. And the microphone itself is enclosed in this plastic casing, which kind of acts as wind protection, but it also protects the microphone, which is really cool. It's also suspended on a little shock mount inside the casing, which will help absorb some of the vibration sounds from handling your camera or any other movement that might happen during the recording of the video. This microphone also includes a little wind muff that goes on top of it to reduce the wind noise even more. The second microphone that we're going to take a look at is the Rode VideoMicro. Now this is also a very small and lightweight microphone that would be great to add to your vlogging setup. This one weighs in at about 60 grams, so still lightweight. The microphone cable actually plugs into the rear of this one. It does not have that locking collar like the Sennheiser one did. A shock mount is included to reduce vibrations during recording. Now this one also includes a little wind muff that goes on the front to reduce the wind noise even more. It does make the microphone a little bit bulkier, as the wind muff is kind of like this big poof ball thing, and it just adds a little bit more to the profile of the microphone. All right, the third microphone we're gonna look at is the Sennheiser MKE 400. This is kind of the big brother of the MKE 200 that we just looked at, and this one is brand new for this year, just came out. So this one's obviously a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier than the other two that we just looked at, but still very low profile and fairly lightweight. I think by far this one has the most features sort of packed into it. It weighs in at about 118 grams. And just like the MKE 200, the mic cable plugs into the front with a little locking collar to make sure that it is totally secure during your production and filming. This one is actually powered by 2 AAA batteries, which go in the rear compartment here. And Sennheiser claims that it'll last about 100 hours of recording time. So that's pretty good. You won't need to replace the batteries all that often. On one side of the microphone, you have the power switch, a 200 hertz high pass filter, and a gain switch. Now the gain switches aren't labeled, it's just a little minus and plus sign in a little neutral position. So just so you know, it's minus 20 up to plus 20 dB. On the other side of the microphone, it has a headphone input and a volume rocker for the headphones. Now, one of the cool benefits about that is a lot of these vlogging cameras that we have don't have a headphone input. So this will really help you hear your audio before it goes into the camera. But that's important to remember, is that it's the audio before it goes into the camera. Remember that you have to set your mic levels on your camera and monitor those levels as best as you can. This will just give you an idea of what it sounds like before it goes into your camera. Keep that in mind. Just like the MKE 200, this one is built into a plastic housing, which has a shock mount inside that's suspending the microphone. It acts as a little bit of wind protection. It also comes with an additional wind muff that goes over the top that reduces that wind noise even more, and it just protects the microphone really well. The last one that we're gonna take a look at here is the Rode VideoMic Pro. Now there are upgraded versions of this microphone out there, but this one I've had for a very long time. I've been using it forever. It's rock solid, it sounds great, and it's definitely been a popular mic for years and years. So out of all 4 of them, it's obviously the biggest and heaviest. It weighs about 132 grams. As you can see, it comes built into a shock mount that mounts directly on top of your camera to reduce that vibration. This one has its mic cable built into it, which may or may not be a problem for some of you. I haven't had any issues with mine. It still in there, it's still solid, but I could see how that could potentially cause some issues. On the back of it, it has a power switch, which also has an 80 Hertz high pass filter. And then below that are the gain switches. Now this is very helpful because it's actually labeled -10 and +20 with a neutral position in the middle. It came included with a little bit of foam for wind protection. It's not the best, but it is better than nothing, I suppose. If you want extra wind protection, this is the only one that didn't come with an extra wind muff. You'll have to buy that separately from a company like Ryco. So guys, if you're interested in any of these mics, I'll put links for them down in the description below. Just follow those links and you can check them out there. So I'm gonna give you guys my predictions of what's gonna happen here. I think the MKE 200 and the Rode VideoMicro are gonna be very evenly matched. And then I think the MKE 400 and the VideoMic Pro are gonna be a little bit more evenly matched. So I think this race is gonna be pretty much between the two little ones and the two bigger ones. So I figured the best way to test vlogging microphones is to put them on a vlogging camera and take them out for some vlogging. Let's go. The first one that we're gonna do here is the Sennheiser MKE 200, and I'm gonna switch to that mic right now. So now you are listening to the sound from the MKE 200. This is what it would sound like if you were walking around, vlogging on your ZV-1 at arm's length with the wind protection on. It's a little windy out here at the coast, and hopefully you're not hearing too much wind noise. Hopefully the wind protection is doing its job, but this is what it would sound like if you were talking to the camera with the Sennheiser MKE 200 on top. All right, so the next one we're gonna check out is the Rode VideoMicro. I've got that on top of the camera right now, so you're gonna hear it right now. So I've switched to the Rode VideoMicro. This is what it would sound like on top of the camera as you're walking around vlogging. One thing that I wanna point out is the MKE 200 that I just had on top, because of the low profile of the mic, it was actually kind of hard to unscrew it from the top of the camera. The thumb screw on the bottom of the mic is really close to the top of the camera, and I had a hard time getting my fingers in there to unscrew it. It wasn't that big of a deal, but just, you know, something to think about when you're buying one of these mics is just, you know, where you're gonna put it and how it's gonna fit onto the camera. All right, so the next one to check out here is the Sennheiser MKE 400. This one's quite a bit bigger on top of the camera than the other two that we just checked out, but it should sound a lot better. And this one also has the extra wind protection on, so you should be hearing it right now. I've switched over to the MKE 400, and this is what it sounds like. So again, you should really hear a big difference between this one and the previous two. This one had the same issue as the MKE 200, where that space underneath the microphone where you screw it down on top of the camera is a little tight. It's a little too low profile. It's hard to get your fingers in there and screw it down all nice and tight, but not a huge deal. I don't want to make it sound like it's, you know, some deal breaker and a reason to not buy the microphone. That's certainly very nitpicky, but just something to point out and notice. So this is the MKE 400, and I think this one should really sound really nice, and you guys can probably hear a significant difference between this one. Let's check out the Rode VideoMic Pro next and see how it compares to this one. Okay, so the last one to check out here is the Rode VideoMic Pro, which you are listening to right now. So I've switched over to the Rode VideoMic Pro, and again, just like the MKE 400, you should hear a significant difference between this one and the first two. It's probably got a lot more low end and just sounds a lot better quality than the other two. The first two, I should say. One of the things that I mentioned back in the studio, remember when I said that it's kind of a bummer that the cable is built into the microphone? Well, it turns out that that's actually not such a bummer, because when I drove out here to the location, I actually forgot all the cables to the other cameras, and I had to drive all the way back home to get them. This was the only one that I could actually plug into the camera directly because the cable is attached to the mic. So At first I said that was a bummer, but it's actually a pretty good thing. You can't forget your cables at home. Don't forget your cables, people. So that pretty much concludes the vlogging test of the microphones. This is what they would all sound like on top of a ZV-1 vlogging around here. But I have another test in mind that I think you guys might enjoy. It's a little bit different. Let's go check it out.